AvePoint Cloud Governance is a tremendous solution for automating the provisioning of SharePoint Online site collections and Microsoft Office 365 teams with policies assigned to them that define things like lifecycle management options, templates, and even things like ownership and permissions. But what about Office 365 objects that already exist? What if you already have SharePoint Online site collections and you would like to apply cloud governance policies to those? Or you already have Office 365 teams and you would like to apply policies to those? For that, we go into Cloud Governance, into Settings. In Settings, in the SharePoint category, we have Import Office 365 Objects. In your Import Existing Office 365 Object settings, you have a few different modes across the top. The first one is called Export Mode, and just to the right of that is Import Mode. With Export Mode, you build a catalog of existing Office 365 objects and export that out into an Excel spreadsheet. You can then go through that spreadsheet and provide the values that you want for different fields, and then import that back into Cloud Governance, essentially providing it a mapping of what you're looking for. Here's what the spreadsheet looks like. You have the URL of the site collection and the admin center. Here I'm just using an Office 365 demo tenant. Off to the right, I would now fill in the departments for those site collections, the Cloud Governance policy names, who the primary and secondary site collection contacts were, and then continue to work my way down, including things like, do I want to keep the site collection quota as it is already in SharePoint Online, or do I want to override it? And do I have any custom metadata that I want to apply? In this case, publishing to the site collection directory. So again, I would go through, I would fill all of that in. I would then come back here, and I would use Import Mode to pull that spreadsheet in. The way you get the spreadsheet, of course, is by filling out this form and making decisions like what you want to export, what the scope of the export is, and so on. Now, this may seem like a lot of work, but it gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility, especially where things like policy name and site collection contacts come in. If, however, you don't need to go through and make decisions one by one, you say maybe only have one site collection policy, and you want to apply it to all of your site collections. And somebody in IT is going to be considered the contact, so the same person for all the site collections. Or, of course, remember things like Microsoft Office 365 groups and teams. In our example here, we'll stick with SPO site collections. If that's the scenario, then up at the top we have Automatic Import. In the Automatic Import page, I click on Create, and we start by giving the import a name and description. We scroll down, and we can leave a note for the primary contact. This is important because the person that you list as the primary contact will receive an email message that says you are now the primary contact for this site collection. If they don't know, this informs them that they are now taking ownership. After filling in the note, we scroll down, and we target the scope to import from. If you don't remember that language, that's from AvePoint Online Services in Dynamic Object Registration. In this scenario, I'm running an express dynamic object registration rule, which means it's simply pulling in all the various site collections that are available there. Keep in mind that you can also do advanced dynamic object registration rules that allow you to pick and choose. So if you had 3 or 4 different people who were going to be the primary contacts on various site collections, you could go use dynamic object registration to break those up and then do multiple automatic imports, one for each person and their scopes. In this case, for the demonstration, I'm going to bring in everything. Scrolling down, we can run this on a schedule if we choose to. Very valuable if you anticipate adding additional objects in the future. So whether it's site collections or Office 365 teams, if you run this, for instance, once a day, it will go and it will capture any new site collections or other objects and then import them so that Cloud Governance can see them and then begin managing them. Scrolling down a little bit further, here's where we can list the site collection contact, pick an email template for the communication, and if we choose to, put in a secondary contact. I'll pick the built-in email template that's assigned to this particular type of task, but of course you can make your own email templates if you choose to. And then we pick the policy. So as I mentioned earlier, remember you can use the spreadsheet if you want to assign different policies and different contacts to different site collections. In this case though, with the auto import, I'm going to pick one that will be applied to all. I can tell it to allow those site collections to keep their own individual quotas as opposed to being assigned the quota that's dictated within the policy. And I can also choose to enable the Cloud Governance app if I want to promote people using those particular scopes to be able to access the Cloud Governance catalog of provisioning requests, permission requests, and so on. Scrolling down, I currently only have the one default metadata field in here, but if you created additional metadata fields, you could have those assigned automatically. And you can even specify a duration of this process. The duration refers to the fact that the new contact has to confirm these various properties. So if I'm going to assign this to the gold policy, then Bob, who receives the notification, Bob, you are now the contact. Do you confirm that you want this to have the gold policy assigned to it? Bob has to say yes. Bob has to approve all of the properties there. If Bob does not do that in a certain number of days, well then it will be labeled as overdue. That will be Bob's task in order to make those approvals are overdue. If there is any lifecycle management dictated within the policy, things like lease period, for instance, for the site collections, where the lease needs to be renewed, when will those lifecycle management properties kick off? Then administrator contact. We know the administrative contact is more of an IT function. This is going to be someone who monitors the import process within Cloud Governance, makes sure that things get assigned properly, generally not considered the same as the site collection contact, which more commonly would be a business owner. In this case, I will list myself as the administrator. And choose appropriate email templates. Back up towards the top, if everything looks good, I will click on Save. And that will launch the auto import process. If you are someone who was listed as a site collection contact, once the import hits that particular site collection, you will start receiving email that says you need to go and confirm the properties associated with your site collection. And here in Cloud Governance, if I go back out to the home page and into the public site collection directory, since I left that metadata set to yes, those site collections will appear in here as they get cataloged by Cloud Governance and they get approved by their contacts. Thanks for watching this short video on importing existing Office 365 objects into Cloud Governance.